Daniel Sports Central, we go over a March Madness game preview and prediction on the Elite Eight matchup between the North Carolina Tar Heels and the St. Peter's Peacocks. Both teams have outstanding stories coming into this matchup. You got North Carolina, an 8 seed who's beaten Marquette, Baylor, and UCLA so far in this tournament, and they're one game away from being in the Final Four and facing off against Duke. But they're facing off against St. Peter's, the team that is the Cinderella story of this tournament, and quite possibly the biggest Cinderella story of all time if they can win this game. St. Peter's, a 15 seed, has beaten Kentucky, Murray State, and Purdue to get to this point. And the Peacocks, if they win this matchup, they face off against Duke in the Final Four. So quite an outstanding matchup here coming up here in the Elite Eight. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting out with your team trends. North Carolina, 27-9 heading into this matchup. And this team, it was tough to tell how they're going to do in this tournament considering they're a bit inconsistent down the stretch, but nonetheless, 27-9 is their overall record, 15-5 in conference this season, and 2-4 in games against the top 25 versus St. Peter's, who's 22-11 overall, 14-6 in conference play, and they did not play one ranked opponent this season. So St. Peter's, this is a team, they're a 15 seed for a reason. They didn't play a ranked opponent over the course of the season. Their record is good but not great, and St. Peter's, they came into this tournament on fire with a win over Kentucky in overtime, beat Murray State by 10, and of course Purdue, a team, the last Big Ten team remaining in the tournament. St. Peter's knocked them out. Games be on Sunday, March 27th this afternoon, Philadelphia, and your tip-off is 5:05 p.m. Eastern. Spreads going North Carolina here by 8.5 points. So the Tar Heels are favored pretty significantly in this matchup. We saw that with Purdue as well. The Boilermakers were favored by a decent amount when they faced off against St. Peter's, but look how that turned out. The Peacocks ended up knocking off Purdue. Over-under is 138, and your BPI is going with North Carolina here 81%. So the Tar Heels are favored by a heavy amount going into this matchup. Your tournament runs, North Carolina beat Marquette 95-63, put up 93 on Baylor, beating them in overtime 93-86, and beat UCLA by 7, 73-66. So, North Carolina, this team in this tournament has been outstanding to say the least, put up 95 points on Marquette. And in that round of 64 matchup, you could tell, the Tar Heels were, that looked like a really good basketball team in that matchup. And from that point forward, I picked North Carolina to beat Baylor, and I picked the Tar Heels to beat UCLA as well in their separate game previews. And for the reason being, North Carolina, this team is, they're hot right now. They're playing outstanding. Offensively, putting up as many points as they are. And that UCLA game, too. UCLA is an experienced basketball team. That team, if UCLA could have gotten past the Tar Heels, I could have definitely seen the Bruins making a run for the title because, both North Carolina and UCLA are both teams that are very capable of doing so. And, the Bruins, they're a good basketball team, and North Carolina beat them, which is a huge win. And St. Peter's, don't sleep on this team either. Beating Kentucky in overtime, that was huge. Beating Murray State by 10, beating Purdue. It's pretty unbelievable what St. Peter's has done in this tournament, being a 15 seed coming in, beating a 2 seed, a 3 seed, and a 7 seed. Kentucky, Purdue, both outstanding teams all season long, and St. Peter's has ended both of their seasons. Pretty insane what they have done. Here's your stat comparison for this matchup. North Carolina, 77.5 points a game, 71.7 allowed, and the BPI rank is 26. Versus St. Peter's, who's got 66.9 points a game, 61.8 allowed, and the BPI rank is 112. It's hilarious because St. Peter's statistically is by far the worst team in this matchup, and it's been that way for the previous three. That's why March Madness is so insane, is because you see St. Peter's, a team that is statistically way worse than the opponents that they're facing, going in and playing better and just knocking off their opponents one by one. And that's what's crazy is, St. Peter's 66.9 points a game is not a good stat. That's a very low number, and St. Peter's is managing to score 85 points on Kentucky or beating Purdue as they did, which is simply insane. And some notable matchups: North Carolina 1-1 against Duke, lost to Kentucky by 29, lost to Tennessee by 17, lost to Purdue by 9. So you can see, North Carolina, this team was a bit inconsistent over the course of the season. That is what kind of concerned me going into this tournament, was how inconsistent this team was, but they do have some good experience. And when you've got experience, that can go a long way in this tournament. They did beat Michigan by 21, which was a good win, certainly, and obviously beat Duke at the end of the regular season, which was a massive win, beating Duke in Coach K's last home game. But, just a heads up here, North Carolina, if you win this game, and I'm sure you guys are all aware of it, you face off against Duke in the Final Four. And how insane would that be, seeing Duke and North Carolina face off in the Final Four? after an insane matchup, one of the biggest regular season games of all time between Duke and North Carolina at the end of the regular season. And St. Peter's, they really don't have any significant wins over the course of the season. Lost to Providence by 14, lost to VCU by 3, lost to St. John's by 21. They were 0-2 against Iona and 0-2 against Siena over the course of the season. Some key points: North Carolina 27-9. They've beaten Marquette, Baylor, and UCLA to this point. So obviously, both teams have played good opponents. There's no doubt about that, and both teams have overall played outstanding against all of them. And North Carolina, this team is playing as good as anybody in the field for sure. I could see North Carolina going and winning this whole thing. There's no doubt in my mind. But obviously, there are other teams that are certainly good, but North Carolina is, they're up to par with everyone else in the tournament for sure. They play incredibly well under pressure. That's what's huge about this Tar Heels team. That's what's massive is, this team under pressure and in big situations, they have performed outstanding. Against Baylor, they let Baylor come back into that game. North Carolina dominated most of that one, and the Bears stormed back, almost got the win. But in overtime, North Carolina corrected from their mistakes, and they got the win by 7. And, this team, they do play very well under pressure, and I feel like that's going to go a long way, especially as we head into the later part of this tournament. And St. Peter's, this is one of the biggest Cinderella stories, one of the best Cinderella stories of all time already. Can you imagine if St. Peter's beats North Carolina here and goes to the Final Four? This team, that would mean they're 2 games away from winning a national championship, a 15 seed. It's pretty insane what they have done. And there's a reason why this team is so liked by everybody right now. Is because of how insane of a story it is. But they've got wins over Kentucky, Murray State, Purdue in the tournament, and they're quite possibly the hottest team remaining in this tournament. Do not sleep on St. Peter's. I slept on them against Purdue. That Purdue game, I actually picked the Boilermakers in that matchup, and guess who won? St. Peter's. So, when it comes down to it, it's tough to pick against St. Peter's. But North Carolina, this is a team that back in my first bracket prediction, I predicted the entire bracket. I actually picked a Duke-North Carolina matchup in the Final Four. And so I picked North Carolina to make it all the way to the Final Four on Selection Sunday when the bracket was released. And so, it's going to be tough for me to go against North Carolina here in this matchup. I also picked Kansas to make the Final Four in that bracket as well. So, my Final Four is overall fairly accurate, especially if North Carolina wins this game here today. So it's tough to pick against North Carolina. But then again, St. Peter's, this team down the stretch and in this tournament has been nothing short of outstanding. But that said, let's get to the prediction here for North Carolina and St. Peter's. I've got to go with North Carolina here. 77-73 is my predicted final score. I picked North Carolina once again to the Final Four in my bracket prediction, and I'm going to stick with that. I feel like North Carolina here, they're going to end St. Peter's incredible run. And as much as the Peacocks, how insane it would be to see them win this matchup and a 15 seed to get to the Final Four, I just don't know if it's going to happen. I'm going to go with North Carolina. I feel like the Tar Heels under pressure, how they play. Defensively, they've been great. Offensively, they've been lights out. I'm going to go with North Carolina to get the win here, 77-73. Probability 55% towards North Carolina, so obviously it's going to be close. I don't expect this to be a blowout. I do expect St. Peter's to cover. The spread is 8.5 points towards North Carolina. I do feel like that's a bit heavy, and I feel like St. Peter's playing their opponents like how they have in this tournament. I do expect them to definitely put up a fight in this matchup, and it's going to be close. Over-under is 138. I'm going to take the over for this game. I do think North Carolina, their offense is definitely capable of scoring near 80 in this matchup, so I'm going to take the over for this matchup and St. Peter's to cover. But that said, let me know your thoughts and comments below on this game, and I appreciate you guys are watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.